This is probably going to be one of the most important videos that I've ever made up until this point. This is going to be investigating what honesty is. Honesty is not some sort of corny principle that you have to do in order to be a good little boy or a good little girl. Honesty is actually one of the most profound and hardest things that a person can do. A lot of what we're calling honesty in culture, I would argue, is actually not even real honesty, but it's partial truths that we are sort of twisting to fit our agenda so that we can get a lot of what we want. And like I said, this is going to be one of the most important videos that I've made up until this point. Now, I want you to be very honest with yourself. Do you know what honesty is? And you might think, of course I know what honesty is. We all know what honesty is. But I really want you to stop and feel your body and actually reference your thoughts in a very ruthlessly honest way. Do you know what honesty is? Have you investigated what honesty is ever? Have you ever read a book about what honesty is? Have you ever even looked up the definition of the word honesty? Have you used honesty as a guiding principle in your life? Have you actually practiced being honest in moments where every aspect of you wants to lie in order to protect yourself? So honesty is something that most people, at least most of the people that I've seen and talked to, really have no idea what it is, unfortunately. And honesty is something that has to be practiced, really. Because when we grew up, a lot of what we were told about honesty was nonsense. It was just ways to get us to behave in a certain way. Basically, it was survival. It was integrating into a social system for the most part. It had really nothing to do with really being truthful and having integrity. But honesty in this context, in this video, has nothing to do with a moral philosophy. It has nothing to do with being a good boy or a good girl. It has nothing to do with even pleasing people or not pleasing people. Honesty in this context and throughout this video is going to be seen as a principle for your life, a guiding principle, an actual practice, something you actually have to do, and also something that exposes what is the case, or what is true. Of course, by definition, honesty has to be doing that. And speaking of definition, I've decided to print out the definition of the word honesty. And that is free from fraud or deception. And I decided to define deception or deceive. To cause to accept as true or valid what is false or invalid. Now, our mind is not an honest actor, unfortunately. It would be very easy if it was. But our mind has evolved over many, many years to help us to survive. And in many cases, what is true and what is honest isn't aligned with what we apparently need or want, our self-agenda, our survival agenda. And that is a profound correlation between truth and honesty and survival. Many times these are at odds with one another. And survival is a very interesting thing. I've talked about it quite a bit, but survival, for the most part, is not just eating food and being warm, but it's also defending one's beliefs, defending one's psychological self and our sort of conceptual self-image. Survival has a lot to do with even being accepted by other people. And in many ways, when it comes to all of this stuff, we are very dishonest, very manipulative, and we filter out what is authentic to us in order to get some sort of need met. whether it's acceptance or love or sex or money or fame, whatever, or just anything that we want. Like we want people to move over here instead of being over there. So honesty and dishonesty are two extremely overlooked things within a person's personal life. Now, I don't want you to, when you're done watching this video, even begin to think that you know what honesty is. I want you to recognize this video as nothing more than an introduction to honesty. And even throughout this video, I want you to have a sense of curiosity and wonder and not knowing. Because when your cup is full, and I'm trying to sort of lay some new groundwork and foundational work to basically your mind, that's what I'm trying to do in this video, and your sort of mind is full, it can't really be done. So throughout this video, I'm gonna have to ask you to remain open and curious. Now, I have some other words that sort of go along with honesty, just to get a little bit more of an idea of what it is that I'm talking about in your head. So legitimate, truthful, genuine, real, integrity, sincere, and authentic. And I once again want to state that this has nothing to do with a moral philosophy of any kind. This isn't about being honest so that we can like go to heaven or something. This has a lot to do with what honesty is in our life and how we are actually deeply dishonest most of the time, and how honesty is something much more profound than we're actually aware of. And actually, I keep saying the word actually, it actually takes a very large degree of self-actualization to be very deeply honest. And Abraham Maslow, the guy who coined the term self-actualization, found that only about 1% of humans are self-actualized. That was a long time ago. Now the number is probably around 5 to 7 or 8. But you get the point. That it actually takes a very mature psyche to get what honesty is and the importance of it and use it as a principle and actually see the power of it. And I'm hoping to just open you up to that in this video. So honesty as a principle and a practice is something I'm trying to get you to understand. So I want you to notice how difficult it is to be honest and how it goes against much of your conditioning. I want you right now, very simple, to just notice how you feel and be honest about it. Just say it to yourself. I feel tense in my stomach. I feel joy. I feel like sneezing. And that's it. I just want you to just begin to get a taste of noticing what is the case, what is real in the present moment, and then bringing it to awareness. And that's it. Very simple to start off with. But how about, let's say, when you're feeling sad? I want you to admit to yourself, I feel sad or lonely. And I want you to notice what you actually do in these moments. Do you distract yourself with ice cream and entertainment and try to avoid what's happening inside of you? And do you say that to yourself, that I'm avoiding what's happening inside me using ice cream and entertainment? Do you even like to admit that to yourself? So what I classify as dishonesty, or just a lack of honesty, for the most part, is avoidance and dismissing a lot of information or overlooking things in a way that serves some agenda that you already have. Like, let's say you're sad, but you don't want to be sad. Your agenda is to have this particular feeling. So you go and eat ice cream and entertain yourself. And now, in this sort of series of events, we have disconnected from what is real in the present moment and what's true in favor of some sort of agenda that we're creating. And I want you to notice how that never feels good. That never feels good, because when there's something that is actually there, it's true, it's real, it's there, it's observable, and we're going against that, there's a split now between what is the case and us. There's a sense of wanting to run, avoid, and there's a fear of what's happening as well. That's why we want to avoid it. So this avoidance is, I'll say for now, okay. It's okay. But do you actually know how much you avoid yourself? And are you actually honest about it as well? Now, like I said, I want you to notice how much being honest goes against your current conditioning. Would you like to notice how many times you go out to connect with people out of an underlying sense of loneliness? Would you like to be honest about that? Now, there's a lot of things that a lot of people would not want to be honest about. Of course, that's not an easy thing to admit, to actually say my drive to relate to a lot of people is actually coming from loneliness. So I really want you to understand that this isn't like airy-fairy or like fluffy or like just like positive thinking, but like what is actually happening? Like what is actually the case? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why are we saying the things that we're saying? Why are we acting the ways that we're acting? And are they honest? Are they true, really? Are they aligned with what is true? Or are they just forms of avoidance, forms of running away out of an underlying sense of fear? So when we were young and we were told to be honest, a lot of us weren't. Most of us weren't and still aren't. Almost all of us. And I want you to recognize why it is that you lied. Let's say there's the classic example of, a little kid, did you eat the cookie from the cookie jar? And he says, nope, when he actually did. Now, why is he lying? He wants safety. He wants to be accepted. He doesn't want to get in trouble. He's trying to save himself by lying. That's the whole point. There's a part of him that is scared about the consequences of being honest. And that hasn't went anywhere. That mechanism doesn't actually go anywhere throughout a person's life unless they actually consciously go back and they're rewiring this stuff. They look at their core needs like safety, personal boundaries, love and belongingness, and they start to examine how they go about getting these needs met. So lying is basically always something that you're doing to save your own ass or to get something that you want, which is another form of saving your own ass. It's survival. Now, I really want you to get that unless you have practiced honesty and really examined it for quite a long time, you don't understand what it is. I'm sorry that that it comes off a little bit blunt like that. But honesty, like I said, is a complicated thing. Like, why aren't politicians more honest? Why isn't this person more honest? Why don't they just tell the truth? What do they have to hide? I want you to notice that you have a lot of things to hide. And maybe from other people, but more importantly in this video, from yourself. So all perceptions need to be in accordance with one another. What does that mean? Let me explain this. all perceptions need to be in accordance with one another. Our intuition, our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior, our instincts, and our senses all have to be in accordance with one another. They all have to actually be integrated, because honesty isn't just a mind game kind of thing. Honesty integrates the whole human being in all of their capacities. Left brain, right brain, feeling, logic, intuition, instinct, senses, awareness. When you feel one thing and you're behaving in a certain way, but then you're saying another thing, there's a split now. When there's something in your experience, but you're avoiding it or you're trying to look away from it, there's a split now. There's a block that happens. And this block never feels good. This block is basically suffering. It's not a pleasant thing. It doesn't feel good to be all blocked up inside of yourself. So not only is honesty important on an intellectual level, but it has to be deeply integrated in all aspects of ourself, which is something that is a little bit hard to get. It's hard to be honest with our instincts and really get what we're instinctually sensing. It's hard to be honest about our feelings. It's hard to even be honest about our own thoughts. It's hard to be honest about our behavior. When you actually begin to apply this in a very practical way, you can see there's a lot of times where you're kind of just bullshitting yourself. Oh, here I'm clearly just distracting myself from what I'm feeling and trying to escape the moment. But do I like to frame it in that way? Probably not. That's not exactly a heartwarming way to frame it, but nonetheless it is true. And I also want to point out that honesty can be somewhat brutal, but it doesn't have to be. I'm not using honesty as a way to shame other people or myself, to make people feel guilty. And I'm not using honesty in any way to hurt anyone or myself. That's not the point. And I'm going to address that pretty soon. A lot of people, when they think of honesty, it's this sort of asshole approach where it's like, you look like shit today. I'm just being honest. But that's not honesty. That simply is not honesty. Now, there was a comment that was left on one of my previous videos. It's how lying ruins your life. Fantastic comment. It deeply inspired me to make this video. It's basically the only reason why I'm making this in-depth explanation about honesty. Because it kind of goes to show that, for the most part, honesty seems to be a very tricky thing in people's minds. This comment is a perfect comment. Like, I could not wish for a better comment, because this gives me a fantastic opportunity to really clear up any misperceptions about honesty. So the comment is this: aren't there situations where a bit of dishonesty might be good? In my opinion, there are some situations where your quote-unquote honesty will just end up hurting someone's feelings and doesn't accomplish anything. If I tell someone that I noticed they gained weight, and they know they gained weight without me mentioning it, who does that help? This is a beautiful question. And I have a fantastic response to it as well. So I start off by saying it's a fantastic question. When it comes to being honest with other people, because that's what the comment was about, we need to be aware of what our own underlying intentions are with what we are communicating and the other person's needs, wants, intentions, motivations, and self-agenda. If a person is simply closed to the idea that they have gained weight, for example, why bother them about it? So, why do you actually want to tell them that they gained weight? What are you trying to get something out of it? What's the point now? Because if you're trying to help them and you're trying to be honest, what's happening below the surface now? So why bother them about whether they gained weight or not? So unless, of course, it's you that wants them to change because you have some idea about how they should be, which is a subtle form of manipulation. So we have to keep in mind that we have layers of intentions and motivations. Some can be genuine and others not genuine, and the layers are often out of sight and out of mind. I'll give some examples of layers of intentions right now. If I notice someone has gained weight and I walk up to them, hey, you've gained weight, what are my intentions? Okay? Am I trying to help them? Am I trying to put them down? And maybe I want a little bit of both. See, layers of intentions. There's not just one intention. We're very multifaceted creatures. We're very complicated creatures. So maybe one part of us wants to help them. Maybe another part wants to feel a little bit better than them. Maybe another part wants to change them. We don't think they're good the way they are. And they have to be this other way that we think they should be. Now, are we going to be honest about all of that stuff to ourselves? That is the most important thing when it comes to honesty, is not using honesty to hurt someone else. That's not what I'm calling being honest. That's just an innocent mistake. Being honest should not be weaponized. If we're weaponizing honesty, why are we doing that? If we're using honesty as a way to piss people off, what are we trying to get out of that? Are we manipulating them? Why are we getting angry? And you'll find that a lot of people, for example, use quote-unquote honesty to hurt other people because they are trying to manipulate them. Let's say someone cooks me dinner and I say, that dinner sucked. And I'm saying it in this aggressive way, but I'm just being honest. I didn't like the dinner. So one part of us is honest. It didn't like the dinner. Another part of us is trying to shame them. It's trying to hurt them. And you can see right now very clearly there's layers of intentions. There's multiple intentions. So our main intention might be to tell them that their dinner sucked. But our underlying intention is to hurt them with that statement. So this really changes the game now when it comes to honesty. So why are you trying to tell people that they've gained weight? Do they even want to know that they've gained weight? If they already know they've gained weight, I mean, why bother them about it? And also, I'm also going to have to bring this up. You need just some basic social skills as well. Like, it's probably not an effective way to communicate to people to just walk up to them and say, hey, you've gained weight. Like, how is that going to be interpreted by them? You see, you have to take into account that other person's feelings, thoughts, intentions, motivations, agenda, needs, all this stuff. You actually have to recognize that there's another conscious entity that is a very complicated being with you, and not just like, it's my friend and he's gained weight. Dude, you've gained weight. You're looking like shit. See, one part of us might want to help him. Like, hey man, you don't look too well. Another part of us might want to shame him. Like, like, you don't look good. So we really have to be honest about what we're trying to get out of the communication. What do you want from that communication? What are you trying to do with communications like that? Now, I go on to say that there are also ways of delivering harsh truths to people in compassionate and embracing ways. So it isn't just what you say, but also your behavior, intentions, motivations, feelings, degree of acceptance in the moment, and more. Don't get too stuck in the cognitive realm or just thought. We are deeply multifaceted creatures and everything comes together. So from one perspective, it's true that maybe this person has gained weight. But how are we relating to them? Is that an effective way to relate to them? To just walk up to them and say, like, hey, you're fat, basically. Hey, you've gained weight. Is that honestly an effective communication? Can we be honest with ourselves that, for the most part, that will probably not be effective? This just is a rather poor way to relate to people, for the most part, to just walk up and blurt something like that out. So we can have the fact you've gained weight, but now how are we going to relate to that fact? How are we going to interpret that? How are we going to feel about that? What's our intuition about it? What's our agenda with it? What do we want out of it? See, there's a lot more than just the fact. And all of this stuff comes together in honesty. And it all has to really be aligned together. And the place that we're coming from, we have to be honest about what that place is. Are we trying to just get something out of someone? Which, that's okay, Are they okay with us wanting something out of them? So we got to really ask very probing questions. Now I go on to say, from your question, if I tell someone that I noticed they gained weight and they know they gained weight without me mentioning it, who does that help? Now I go on to say, I would ask you to look deeply at what your intentions are. Do you care about what the other person's intentions, needs, agenda, or wants are? Are you trying to change them to serve yourself in relation to an idea of them that you have? So are you trying to change them because you have some idea about how they should be and they're not that way right now? Which is a subtle way of manipulating people. Are you trying to hurt their feelings by saying to them that they have gained weight? See, the problem with this statement/question is that we are separating a fact, a person has gained weight, from the overall context of the situation, which is the big picture. It's comprehensive and it gives us more of a perspective. We're leaving information out. We didn't bring in what the intentions are, whether this person wants to change or not, who this person is, what the is it my dad, my mom, my brother, my friend, my girlfriend? The relationship matters because these are all different ways of relating to people. The way that you would relate to your boyfriend or girlfriend is not the way that you would relate to your dad or your friend or your mom or your dog. These are all different relationships. So you can see that we have to behave differently according to the relationship, the whole context, what the intentions are, the motivations, the agenda, the needs, the feelings, the senses, the intuitions, the instincts, and the thoughts. They all have to be brought in. If we really want to get honesty, if we really want to know what honesty is. So how we are in relation to them matters a hell of a lot more and cannot be separated from the apparent facts of the situation. So how we are in relationship to this whole situation matters a lot more than just, you've gained weight. This little narrow fact, this little thing. This is one little part of the situation which matters. I'm not throwing it away, but I'm bringing more to it. I'm bringing a lot more to it. We cannot separate a part from the whole, or a fact from the context that the fact was in. We cannot understand what is really happening in any situation without the larger context to put these facts in. So how are you feeling as you're telling them they've gained weight? What's really your behavior? And what do you want? Are you really trying to help them? Or do you just want them to change? You want them to change because you think that they should be this way and you don't like them the way they are. But maybe they don't want to change. Maybe they like being that way. Why bother them about it? Why push your agenda on them? Or why manipulate them? Because that's what it is. So honesty is actually a very complicated thing, if you haven't figured that out by now. Finally, in relation to the who does that help, does the person even want help, or are you attempting to force something on them? It deeply depends on the agenda of both people, their needs, layers of intention, and so on. Being honest does not mean be an asshole, as a lot of people think it does. Being honest, quote unquote honest, in the form of being an inconsiderate asshole is actually evidence of deeper wounds within the person that need to be worked out and is a sign of a lack of overall well-being, health, honesty, and integrity. So being honest in the form of being an inconsiderate asshole is actually a lack of honesty. This should be worked on, but only if they want to. Forcing things onto people that they don't want is always a form of manipulation and can often be a rather sticky situation. Again, there are, and I really want you to get this, this is important, there are a lot of moving parts when we are in relation to others. There's a lot of stuff happening. And I've been saying it over and over again. The layers of intentions, layers of motivations, needs, wants, the self-agenda, the thoughts, the instincts, intuition, feelings, the senses, their awareness, their development. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. So I also recommended some books to help basically anyone out. And some of those books, I'll say them right now, are this book is called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. Fantastic. Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark by Robert Augustus Masters, and The Book of Not Knowing by Peter Ralston. And I also go on to say that it's important to be deeply aware and ruthlessly honest about why you're even deciding to communicate the message to the person that you're talking to. Why are you even talking to them? You know, like what are you trying to get out of this? What part of you is this coming from? What am I trying to do? What is their agenda? What do I want out of this? And these are all some good questions to start off with. Now I want you to get that the information that I'm talking about in this video is not some stupid philosophy that I made up, just sitting down in my chair with some books in the back, just thinking. But it's been carefully researched through reading, writing, and direct investigation, directly becoming aware of honesty in my own experience and lying and what that is from the perspective of our direct experience, which can be observed by anyone. Moving on, bringing up the direct experience of lying, I want to say that when you do lie, when there is lying, when there is dishonesty, you experience a deep sense of division within yourself. So when there's something in the moment and we're avoiding it, or we're behaving in a certain way and we're feeling a certain way, but then we're saying another thing, there's a split now that occurs within us. Things are not actually aligned, which isn't a comfortable place to be. It's not a very happy place to be. It's actually a very fearful place to be. It's a sense of needing to protect myself because I'm very vulnerable. Which is true, you are very vulnerable, but you're trying to hide that. So you experience a deep sense of division within yourself when lying, and a sense of internal wholeness and health when being honest. So a lack of integrity, weakness, fear, avoidance, dismissing, and basically suffering overall is lying. These are all forms of lying. And I'm going to go through these one by one. Start with a lack of integrity. So not even really caring about what's true in the first place is basically a lack of integrity, and then not being aligned with it is a lack of integrity. Weakness. Now, what do I mean by weakness? I don't mean that like you don't lift enough and have big enough muscles, but I mean like you can notice that when you're lying, there's fear, and this goes hand in hand with the next point, which is fear. But you're very contracting, overly self-protective, and this overall is weak behavior, not like, you're weak, be stronger. I'm not saying it like that, but overall, this is just fearful and overly anxious and overly protective behavior. And for the most part, it's not needed. Avoidance. Let's say there's something that is happening, or, we'll just leave that something that's happening right now. And we're trying to run away from it. There's something that's true in our experience, whether we're happy, sad, we want something, and we're running away from this. We don't like to look at it. We don't like to see it. We want to move away. We're avoiding. We're not in alignment with what is true. There's something that's true that we're not looking at. We're purposely hiding it and avoiding it. Dismissing. So dismissing is a good one. Let's say that you have a belief and I have evidence, or I want you to do something that can shake up this belief, and you can realize that maybe there was some truth in it, but it wasn't fully true. It wasn't entirely the case, that this is just the way that this particular thing is. And you just dismiss that so that you can protect this belief that you have. That's dishonest behavior. Because you don't care about what's true. You care about defending your beliefs in that moment. What's true and what's honest doesn't matter. And suffering. Now, suffering in this video has a lot to do with just that split I'm talking about between what's happening and ourselves, or what our experience is and ourself. So trying to avoid experience creates suffering. Avoidance of reality creates suffering. It's not a particular emotion. And that's not what I'm talking about. Sadness is not suffering. The avoidance and resistance of sadness is now suffering. Sadness is just what it is. There's nothing good or bad about it. And when you move directly into the experience of sadness, the label of sadness doesn't really work anymore to describe what you're experiencing. Because when you move directly into the feeling sense when you're sad, or right now, you'll find that there's just fluctuating and changing energy. And when you're angry, it's fluctuating and changing energy. When you're happy, fluctuating and changing energy. When you're feeling anything at all, it's fluctuating and non-stop changing energy. So the actual label of I'm sad drops away because it can't capture that constant change and chaos of energy that actually is the case. So truth, on the other hand, is open, vulnerable, and transparent. Truth is open to the experience. There's openness, there's acceptance, there's vulnerability. Saying I'm sad, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling happy, whatever it is. There's vulnerability because the truth is that you're vulnerable, that you're alive and you can get hurt. And that in many ways, being honest is going to go against your current conditioning, which can feel kind of dangerous. The truth is that you're very vulnerable. And what was the last one? Transparent. So the truth doesn't hide. The truth doesn't hide. It doesn't have a need to hide. The truth can be out in the open and seen by anyone. Hiding, avoiding, dismissing, this is all dishonest behavior. Openness, transparency, being vulnerable, being clear, being effective communication, for example. A lot of this stuff has to do with being open, honest, and just truthful, vulnerable. This is all truth. These are all qualities of being honest. These will naturally arise. So will curiosity, compassion. A lot of these will naturally arise when you're very honest and you're very willing to look. You just naturally start to get curious, compassionate. These things naturally start to sort of arise. Not compassionate in like this sort of like lovey-dovey, sort of stupid and soft way, but you're not aggressive anymore for them. Like you're not attacking anymore. That sort of just falls away. Because when you're attacking, in any way, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, you're trying to force something on someone for the most part. You're trying to get something out of a situation, trying to manipulate a situation to get something for yourself, which, when it's forced in this aggressive way, is manipulation. You're trying to manipulate a situation for your own self-agenda, which is dishonest behavior. Would you like to admit that you do that a lot? See for yourself. And manipulation runs rampant in human relations with ourselves. We manipulate our own drives all the time, our own thoughts, our own feelings. We're trying to change it, rearrange it constantly. We're trying to do that with other people, and we're trying to do it with our world as well. Way too much, to an unhealthy degree. So I've already talked about what I call falsehood and dysfunction in honest and truth-telling robes. So anger and manipulation, like, forcing stuff on someone. You've gained weight, and you're really below the surface trying to make them feel shame or guilt, or trying to force an agenda on them, like you should go to the gym, when they don't really want to. You're trying to force things on people. You're trying to manipulate them. So falsehood and dysfunction in honest and truth-telling robes also runs rampant, where in many cases there can be a little bit of truth to some stuff like this. Like, for example, what I said earlier about the dinner example, where someone makes you dinner and you didn't like it. And you say, yeah, that dinner sucked. But one part of you just didn't like the dinner, and then the other part of you was trying to hurt them. And the part of you that's trying to hurt them is coming from a sort of weak place that's trying to have a sense of power over them, because really underlying that, there's a sense of probably shame and powerlessness and just hopelessness. There's some sort of emotional dysfunction there. And would we like to be honest about that? I'm just being honest. Your dinner sucked. But do you really want to be honest? Do you actually want to be honest about what's happening in the moment? About what's happening emotionally in the moment as well? See, if you didn't like the dinner, you can say, like, I really appreciate that you cooked me dinner, but I'm sorry, I just didn't like it. But I'm glad. I'm glad that we got to spend the time to get together, or whatever. Whatever it is. I appreciate you doing this for me, but I just didn't like it. See? Like, you don't have to be like, yeah, this was crap. See, you don't have to be so aggressive, so hostile about it. Because why are you being hostile? Why is that there? You're trying to get something. You're trying to manipulate. It's a manipulation. So falsehood and dysfunction in honest and truth-telling clothing is huge. You can find that in a lot of places in culture. This is an interesting one right here. So beliefs covering up what is true for you personally. So knowing and not knowing. Our beliefs are actually a cover-up. A belief is basically there's something unknown, and we've formed an opinion about it, and we've asserted it as either true or false, that the universe was made by God, the big angry father figure, the classic depiction of God. Do we know that? Has anyone seen that? Let me know. Let me know if you've seen, I don't know, like Zeus or something. So right now there's a massive unknown. And you're trying to fill in how the universe came to be through a belief, because you, if you're honest, have no clue how the universe came to be. But you're filling it in with beliefs. And it's the same thing with there is no God. Once again, you're claiming to know something that you actually don't know. So I'm not in this video being pro-theist or pro-atheist or anti any of them either. I'm just saying that what beliefs are doing is they are a cover-up for what is true. A belief or any idea of any kind is always partial and limited. And any idea of any kind can and always will change and be expanded upon and become more comprehensive. So our beliefs are actually something that we're using to create safety and ground ourselves in, not truth. And whether, let's say it's something very personal in your life, like this person should behave this way. No, they shouldn't, because they're not behaving that way. That's not in them in that moment to behave in this particular way that you want them to behave. You can talk to them and be like, hey, and you can be very honest about it. Hey, when you do this, I feel this way, and I think this, and I just, I'd appreciate it if you just didn't do that. There's entire ways of relating to people that are open, vulnerable, effective, and honest. And this is really where I'm going with honesty. The openness, the vulnerability, the rawness of it. So beliefs of any kind are covering something up, and they're also getting us to avoid certain things. Like, this person behaves this way and they shouldn't do that. It's getting us to avoid that they're behaving that way. There's a sense of disconnect from what's happening. We form a belief about a situation to protect ourselves from it. So that's always dishonest behavior. We're covering up our sense of, in many cases, not knowing in order to protect ourselves and make us feel secure and like we actually do know. And we're trying to just defend ourselves against experiences and events and stuff like that using beliefs, instead of coming into contact with the simple, very simple, I don't know. And that's it. Don't fill that up with a belief. Oh, maybe, I don't know. Maybe climate change is real. Have you ever done the experiments? No. You've looked it up on the internet and you believed it. Okay. Maybe it's not real. Oh, okay, maybe. Really, once again, openness. See, you see how I'm behaving in relation to that belief? Personally, I believe climate change is a thing. I believe our environment, we have a massive environmental crisis that's going to be happening and is currently happening. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm so wrong about that. And I'm open to it. I don't ground myself in the belief and go to war with people about it and force things on them and force them to change to my beliefs. I don't try and do any of that, and I don't want to. You see how different the behavior is? See how more open it is? See how more accepting it is? You see how much more compassionate it can actually be? You see how much more clear it actually is? Because maybe I'm wrong. How do I know? I've only ever read books on it. I've only ever seen it on the internet. So for every belief, we should be very open to what the assumptions of that belief is. So let's say you love science. It's a good one. How do we know that everything that is true can be proved using the scientific method? The scientific method is one method out of maybe a lot of other valuable methods. Maybe. How do we know that everything is true can be derived strictly through reason and logic and objective evidence? Is there even an objective world, or does our own subjectivity begin to color that objective world? Can we truly be objective? So what are the actual assumptions behind belief systems? And within any organization, any collective, any relationship, any person, there's always belief systems and there's always assumptions, because that's how the mind works. It forms a belief system. There's no escaping this for as long as you're a human. So you might as well become aware of what your beliefs are and hold them lightly. Hold them lightly. And don't be afraid to question them, instead of using them for self-defense and protection and forcing things on people. So you got to be honest about your beliefs and what they're doing. So what's essential to this, basically questioning of one's own beliefs, is grounded openness. We're grounded in the present moment. We're grounded right here, right now, while being open. We're totally open to new things. Creativity, discovering something new, and basically investigation. And I want to relate honesty to your personal life, your relationships, the collective, and what existence is, and our existential situation, which is right now, do you know what existence is? The big question. Do you know, like, do you actually have the guts to say, I know what existence is? And really be honest about it? Or is it really like, you look around like, I have no clue what's going on here. Like, this is profound. There's a universe. Like, what? How does any of this exist? What's, like, how is any of this even real? How is this possible? How does it relate to your personal life as well? Like, can you be honest about your own thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, what you're doing, your own needs, the ways that you go about getting these needs met, whether they're effective or whether they're manipulative? How about your relationships? Do you actually have a deep connection with your boyfriend or girlfriend? Would you like to investigate that? Or is that a scary thing? And how about your relationship to, let's say, your parents? Do you like manipulate them a lot? Do you try and change them to serve you? Do you try and put out a particular image to be viewed in a particular way? And I guarantee you, in many of your relationships you do, and you even do it in your own personal life, unless you've worked on that for quite a bit. And even the collective. Is your culture really the best? This is the best culture. America's the greatest. This is the best culture. No, never mind. Canada's the best culture. This is the greatest. No, never mind. It's Britain. We're the best culture. See, like, there's personal lies in relation to others, collective lies, and then sort of existential lies. And probably some more. But that's basically it for this video. I highly recommend the work of Peter Ralston, The Book of Not Knowing, Pursuing Consciousness, and The Genius of Being. Oh, also, The Principles of Effortless Power. That's really good. And I'll just leave it at that. But if you guys have any questions, comment below. I'll help you out. Other than that, take it easy.